lucky to be with you, the top sommelier in Peru, 2015 and 2018. How long have you been working in wine in Peru?
Well, since 2012, I became a sommelier well, actually, most of my career I made it in Central. No, more than 7 years actually. And now, well, I'm looking for other projects. Also working with wines, definitely.
Super. And tell me a bit about how you've seen Peruvian wine changing in those last 8 years or so.
Yeah, well, actually, changed very quickly. I think each year the wineries and the small producers are looking for more quality and quantity. The standards of production is much higher each time. They are changing a lot of things, and I think they now actually talk too much with the industry, with the sommeliers, with the restaurants, to work together actually.
Excellent. And what we're going to do is taste a couple wines which you've worked with before, and this here is a very new project. So can you tell me a bit about new valleys being developed in Peru, and then perhaps tell us where Apu comes from?
Sure. Well, this comes from, actually, I like to say the Andes, because I think it's a big thing. It actually connects all America. This is from Apurima. This is a very small project. I remember that I went to the project like 3 years ago, with the wine director, where in Central we were working together to develop and actually to look for other wines, from Peru mostly, because the importation here in Peru is getting bigger and bigger. So I think it's no problem with that. But with Peru, you need to be in touch with the producers, and you need to follow them what they are doing. So we will follow Fernando since 4 years ago. Was experience to go to the winery. It reminds me like when I went to Colomé, for example. It's a huge trip, a whole experience, and it's the same here. You go to the small project. We stayed the whole day talking with the producer, the small vines, and the view was fantastic. And this view. And well, now that the 2017 was the first vintage that he released, it's a small a small project, so we try to buy all that we can. Everything that we can to work in the restaurant. Most of the clients in Central is from other countries, so actually you surprise them a lot, with the Sauvignon Blanc actually that we will having. I try also the Sangiovese, fantastic, but this particular wine, I think each year is definitely gonna get better. This is John Vines, and in Central, we were trying to sell it carefully, because I think the bottle also helps. It was like very sharp.
Yeah. What we were saying is this, as you said, it's very sharp. It's quite lean. It's got good acidity. It's got a lot of fruit and intensity as well, which is quite impressive for such young vines. And this is the highest altitude wine in Peru. And just to put it on the map, South America, you've obviously got Bolivia next door, you've got Argentina, both very high altitude regions. And the majority of Peru is much lower altitude, isn't it? So can you tell me a bit what's happening with the changing altitude plantations in Peru?
Yeah, what I know is that Fernando, he was looking first for a land, then he got to Apurima, and I think it was like a great step, for wines in Peru, because it's all concentrated in the coast. But here, it's blowing their minds right now. The view, the location, the altitudes that we know that the wineries with high altitudes actually has a very interesting, intense of flavors and aromas, like in Salta, also wines from Bolivia. But now with this small project thing, maybe, I hope so, that in the future can come more projects like this. But the intensity you will feel in the mouth and the nose. I think the altitude give you that. the change of the climate. I mean, from the day at night. I mean, like it's very hot, but at night it's like really cold.
Yeah.
You know, like really cold. And also, well, he changed the harvest. I mean, he harvests like in the northern hemisphere, no, in August, September. I mean,
and that's the September's the winter here in Peru. So when you're harvesting in the winter, that's to wait for the dry period. Is that right?
yeah. Well, why he changed it? Because it's very different when you have plantations in the coast than in the Andes. No, since well, here in the coast it's summer, but in the Andes it's cold. It's like winter. No, so you have to change it. And actually, I think now with this project, it's a very new project. I think shows the diversity of our land. It's definitely, yeah. I mean, like we have so many products that are very different. Like potato, for example, we have
How many types of potatoes?
like more than 4,000 types of potatoes.
4,000 types of potatoes.
So it's like very diverse, no? And I think with wine can do the same. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's really exciting to try such a new project at higher altitude, and it also kind of harks to part of the tradition of Peru where you did have plantings up in Cusco and other high altitude regions. The next wine that we're going to try is from lower altitude, more coastal region. So can you tell us about, first of all, Ica, which is the main wine region where this comes from, and then a bit about the project?
Sure. Well, Ica is the main department of production of pisco mostly. You know, I mean, I know that most of them produce wine, but what I know is that they produce wine, but for their consumers. I mean,
for
they
themselves.
don't sell. Yeah, exactly. They're not really sell it, you know, or make it commercial. Now they are changing minds. Now they are trying to do a small production and trying to sell it, because now it's much closer the relation of the sommelier and the producers.
Yes.
No, and well, this project is made. Well, this wine is made of Torontel. No, it's not released yet. No, it's the first vintage, well, 2018, and this is an example as how we were working with the producers in touch. You know.
This is a nice story. This is where you went to the producer who was making pisco.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sorry, I just was stealing your story.
No, well, actually, the story is very interesting. I mean, like, well, working in Peru as a sommelier, I mean, yeah, you have to like to try all the wines that you can from all around the world, no, but you cannot leave your own products. I mean, like own wines from Peru. So the big change was made by Greg Smith. He was the wine director. You know, I was the chef sommelier. So he started with one of the winery Takama. No, he chose. No, or the team chose the Sol Barrique. No, we talked with the winery. They bottled only for us. They put a sign, no, that make us like the difference with the other regular wines that they have in the market. We were talking that history. No, I'm talking about 2015.
Excellent.
2015. We were talking with that to the clients, no, about that project. They really love it. They compare because, well, Takama you can find, no, in many places. They compare, no, this is very different, and actually it was very different. It was very different. Then we start with other wineries, no, like Tabernero. Well, now they are working with Intipalca. And well, this project made of Toronto. Well, I like, well, my whole vacations always trying to get to the wineries and travel, no? And well, we were with the winery with Carmen, you know, she's the owner, and I tell them like, hey, well, I would love to have a wine from you, but made of Torontel. They never make wine. I mean, like, they are traditional producer of pisco, mistels, no,
Yeah.
but never try to do wine. So when they say like, okay, we can do it, and I was like giving my word, like I will help you to sell it to people can know it. I mean, like the sommeliers, the contacts, everything. Well, at that time I was working in Central, so I tell them like I will put the wine in Central and all of that. No? So they made it. They made it. I mean, like we were tasting and tasting and tasting. The wines changed, kind of slowly, but in a good way. Past Levinson, for example, we went to the winery. She was very surprised. That actually the whole winery, they try to rescue and build, the winery. And also, well, the wine was really interesting for her, and she just said like, keep doing.
Yeah, keep doing it for sure. I mean, for me, what's really beautiful about this wine and this kind of impulse is this way to try and rescue and work with the Pisco varieties, the Criollo varieties, which are the oldest on the continent, and revalue them for making delicious wines. And this is a really great wine for only the second harvest. This is the first.
This is the first
still
harvest,
dry
yeah.
wine.
This year they will make the second.
Excellent.
The
So,
second.
tell me a bit. How would you describe this Torontel? I get to drink it, but
Yeah.
how does someone else? How would you describe it?
Actually, it was very interesting. One day that we were trying the wine in the winery, we were sitting, the whole team from Finca 341. 314, sorry, and we were drinking the wine, talking, and we were smelling the area of the winery, and we said, hey, this smell like pecanas, and kind of like green mango, and all of that, and we were like, all of that aromas you find around the finca, and the winery. It was like pretty amazing because we were like just sitting, chill, like talking what we should do with the label, and actually would it's hard to, can transport you to that place, for me, yes, I feel like kind of because the acidity is like medium, low, so, but has good texture, kind of oily, and it's very complex. I think I tried like the bottle for 3 hours, like see how it develops and forms a lot of layers. That's the good thing. Yeah.
I think it's very complex, and I think that's what's really nice, is that actually these Pisco varieties can be very complex. And
I think it's a very good option with this restaurant that actually mix a lot of flavors. That here now in Lima is now getting more common.
Absolutely. And the last one that we're going to try is another Criollo variety. And this is one which actually, something I want to mention is a friend of yours who's another sommelier kind of imports this. So there's this big interesting movement of sommeliers in Peru, really kind of going out and seeking the small producers.
Exactly.
For either their restaurants or for kind of import business or distribution businesses around Peru. And I think that's a really exciting movement, especially because it's young sommeliers
Yeah, totally.
who are trying to rescue old vine growing and winemaking heritage. So tell me about what is Negra Criolla for someone who might have never tried it before.
Well, Negra Criolla has a lot of history, I think, in America. I mean, it was brought by the Spanish from Canarias, the Listan Prieto. In Mexico, well, the Mission grape. In Chile, that actually I think they are the ones that are developing the País, a lot. I mean, like 2 months ago, I went to Maule. I was like very surprised of their País,
Absolutely.
And Criolla Chica in Argentina, and when here we have the Criolla Negra. Actually, it's fun because Lima, Ica, the main grape, Quebranta, but in the south part, I mean, like Negra Criolla is a big thing.
Yeah.
Actually, well, mostly for pisco use. Now, like I said, like producers are now trying to make wine, and I mean, like, they don't have somebody like more generation that they can tell them like do this with like the winery and all of that. So they are like experimenting, trying and trying and trying, no? And in this case, well, Moquegua I've been once only, and I was like very surprised. You know, a lot of history, a lot to do. You know, you find like very honest people, and actually the government helped them to build and to get better infrastructure in the wineries, you know.
Excellent.
And it's very interesting actually that you won't see maybe in other departments, even in Lima, you know. And I think Moquegua is a huge thing. Well, Negra Criolla, I think of the wines, I think it can. I mean, like I didn't try so many Negra Criollas, but I tried a lot of País 2 months ago when I went to Chile. I was very surprised. I tried since well, big producers and very small producers, and they have done very great things. I think the same can happen here, no? And
Absolutely. I
yes.
couldn't agree more. I mean, Negra Criolla or Criolla Chica País, the mission grape, was the most important grape for South America, the most planted, and we've still got so much of it. And so it's so nice to see it kind of being revalued in Peru as well, not just for Pisco but for winemaking, because it's one of the Pisco grapes that actually has tannin.
Yeah.
And it's got colour.
Yeah, it's like high tannins. I mean, like, well, you cannot feel it maybe, but high tannins. Actually, also still the acidity. I think has still some freshness, you know, to it. I think it's very interesting, and well, maybe here happens that if the wine doesn't have a lot of color, maybe for them it's like, no, it's not good. But Negra Criolla can give you that.
Absolutely.
And with food, I mean, this, like, I would love like to have, like, for example, like a long cook, you know, like with a sous vide, for example, for a couple of hours you cook them. So it's very soft, the fatty, you know, that can cut the dryness here. I think these 3 wines, I mean, like, can work very well. The first one, the Sauvignon Blanc, I mean, we are very rich with the seafoods, you know. When I talk about pairings, I like to form the dish, because maybe if you say, well, this go with ceviche, you know, yeah, but you have different types of ceviche.
Absolutely.
So, but with the seafood, like for Nikkei food, that here is a big thing now. The first one, I think.
And Nikkei, can you just explain Nikkei as a concept if someone hasn't had Nikkei?
Yeah, well, Nikkei is a mix of the Japanese culture, you know, food, and Peruvian food. You know, now it's a big thing. Well, a couple of years ago now, it's getting much like fun.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And I think the first one will go like really interesting. You know, like even like raw fish, or even like clams and all of that. The second one, like I say, like can go, because the complex that has can go with this here in Peru. I mean, like Jones chef that opened their own restaurant, they're making their own, you know, recipes, and they mix a lot of flavors and layers. And I think with this white can go very well, no? And what the red, I think already said.
Excellent. I mean, I didn't even have to ask the question. You gave me the pairings. That's the sign of a great sommelier. I love
Well,
it.
yeah,
Thank
I mean,
you.
like I think I'm very proud of all the wines and all the movement that is happening. I think it's gonna be much better. I think the thing is happening now is like the union of producers and professionals of the business, like sommeliers. You know, I think it's a big thing. Now you can see the high end restaurants more and more labels of Peru. You know,
Fantastic. And cheers to more
Cheers.
of that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then vamos Peru.
Yeah, vamos Peru, and please try some wines. I mean, like, or
Absolutely.
come here and
Come here,
come
honestly,
here,
it's actually
yeah.
better just to come to Peru,
Exactly,
eat
yeah.
great food, and drink great wine, and
Exactly.
see all the beautiful country that it is.
it is.
Thank you so much for this tasting, Joseph.
No, thanks to you.
Salud.